food. Get everything taken. Audio should be there. Get the week going. Okay, we should be good to go. And hello. It's been a while. Yeah, we had to skip last week because, well, I really didn't have much to say, but I was also kind of panicking a little bit with the preparation work. But I will say that the preparation work was fantastic. It was definitely worth it. So let's talk a little bit. I'm probably not going to be drawing too much like actual art today. It's just going to be recapping my experience at the convention that I went to just this previous weekend. And I do have another it's a pop-up, just a little event at a tabletop gaming cafe type of deal. I guess you would call it like a board room. They got a whole library of board games that you can borrow and play games at their tables and that kind of stuff. Super neat. Stop by there, got some ideas for food. And then my friends and I were talking about, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we ran our own like convention or had our own like consignment shop type of deal for artists? Because there was Paint a Tree and that went kaput. And then convention wise, a lot of conventions are getting extremely difficult to get into these days. And so we figure maybe it's a good chance for us to do our own thing and then have some more opportunities. But anyway, I stopped by there. They ended up having a program for artists to do pop-ups at their shop, and I thought it was super cool. Got signed up, and that is this upcoming weekend on Saturday. And let's just talk about that real briefly. Okay. So it's just a very small pop-up deal. What I'm gonna do I was actually kind of stressing out on Monday and Tuesday, just trying to think of what am I gonna do for this particular pop-up. Just because, well, there may be people who have gone to Des Moines Con. There wouldn't be anything really new for them. But then I also have some things coming up later in the year that may benefit. But I'm like, you know what? It just doesn't make that much sense. So what I'm actually gonna do is I'm gonna bring some of the stuff that I had at Des Moines Con, no problem. But then also do art commissions on the spot while I'm there, and that way I can use it as information gathering. Because one of the things from Des Moines Con I kind of got was that people really liked the cookbook idea. And so what would be really good is figuring out what would people be most interested in as a collective or that kind of stuff. And so I figured, you know, say $15-$30 a piece. You give me a food or a drink and then a subject, and I just try to combine the two as if they were an actual recipe. Of course, I'm not gonna do all of the legwork for actually making a recipe on the spot. That's just asking for too much, but it is still a good creative exercise at the very least. So that's a plan there. So for example, let's say mimic was meat pie. So something like this would probably be like just be drawing here. Basically a what's the phrase? I think it's called a water crust pastry. Something like this. And you have some of the basic fillings in here. And then you have the meat, an additional filling here. And then get a slice over here. But yeah, that's the basic idea there. It's just real simple word association, idea combinations, just to flex some design muscles. And I may or may not do these in like alcohol markers. I've been trying to learn how to do watercolors, but it's just been a challenge, especially just figuring out how to compose the illustrations that I want and then applying the watercolors to it, because again, it's physical. You just don't have Control C to undo stuff. So that's always the nerve-wracking part. The markers is a little bit more predictable to me versus watercolors. So we'll just see how it goes. But yeah, that's the plan for this weekend. And let's get back to Des Moines Con. So this stream is gonna be kind of a stand-in for a proper con vlog, just because I am terrible, absolutely terrible at recording proper footage for such a video. I just got distracted trying to get everything put together, and so it's like, you know what, I'll just make my stream subject, and then the bot will do its job for that purpose. So let's get some basic stuff out of the way. So Des Moines Con, or fully spelled out, is a convention that takes place every year in Des Moines, Iowa. So making an approximation of the state, smack dab in the center. And relative to everything, it is around here. So part of the Midwest is a base of the chip that you see in the United States. Super weird, I'm sure. Some of you may have never heard of it before, but that's besides the point. Des Moines is the capital city, so it's one of the largest population centers. And my table was 275 with the free book, and it was 300 without. And so this is one of those conventions that allow you to rebook every year, and whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I'm not entirely certain. It does seem excuse me, it does seem that a good, why is my voice cracking? It does seem that a good chunk of the, excuse me, it does seem like a good proportion of the overall vendor hall does rebook year to year. I couldn't give you an exact figure, but I would say probably 60%. So there's still some room for new people coming in every year, which is good. It is juried. And I don't know if this is just me or if it's just how they do it, but it does seem like they tend to give you approximately the same placement every year if you rebook. So you may have to make some request if you decide to move your location around. It is a local convention to me, so my expenses were really low. I didn't have to pay for hotel. I didn't have to pay for Ubers and that kind of stuff. But for those who are coming from outside, I would think you you could probably count on I want to say 70 to 150 a night for the hotel. And then Ubers, I believe most of them are like in the 20 to $40 range. There are plenty of restaurants in the area, so you can walk to most of them. I personally wouldn't recommend it unless you had the time to blow. But yeah, street parking is pretty plentiful. There's parking garages and all of that. Parking at the convention itself was about $13 a day. So that's about $39 for the convention weekend. You don't have to pay for load-in, and you would already be there for load-out. They load out the same day. I will let you know that you would want to get in as soon as you can for load-in, because it can wrap around several blocks if you're unlucky or just slow with the load-in. I personally just go to the parking lot is like this, and then there's a second parking lot, and then the convention center itself. So this is the green lot, and this is the orange. And as vendors, you're supposed to park in this area back here. But during load-in, sometimes there's spots open in the green lot, which is just right outside the convention center. So that's what I did for this year. Is just parked in one of the green lot spots. Dragged my suitcases in, got set up, and then went home. So, loading dock. Is on this side, and the line can just go on for quite a bit. Next up, it is run by Nerd Street, which also does Twin City Con. In Minnesota, in Minneapolis specifically, and I like them. They seem like good folks. They seem to have things pretty down pat as far as operations are concerned. I haven't seen like staff going around and checking on people as much, but maybe that's just me exuding my aura of confidence, and I got this stuff handled, that the people with the con squad ribbons or badges were coming by. When they got to me, it was just like, I'm just looking at your stuff, and then bye. So maybe that's just how it was. Maybe for the other folks, they stop by and notice there's a struggle going on, need a break, that kind of stuff. But I just didn't have any of that being solo. But it wasn't that bad of a issue for me. Um, let's see. Okay, so overall, it is a Comic-Con type of vibe. Um, they did have celebrities, but I wouldn't say it's like the celebrity con, There are certain conventions where you can kind of tell that the focus is on the celebrities. It's just like get some big names, everybody goes to them, and that's it. They're paying hundreds of bucks for um, getting autographs and that kind of stuff. But this was pretty reasonable, I would say. Um, I would say the channel economy does impact this one quite a bit. Um, it is the Midwest, and I would say Des Moines Con is like a local convention as opposed to a premier convention. And so, um, what I mean by that is it's not generally one that people will come and travel to, other than oh, we're just gonna drive like 1 or 2 hours tops to get here. It's not like, oh, we are gonna take suitcases, we're gonna fly out like Opkai. So, let's see, how do I want to frame this? Um, Now, as far as my general observations on the crowd itself, I would say that um, probably a pretty even split all the way across. So, weekend, um, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So you're gonna see a couple of customers there circulating day after day. But as a proportion of the overall audience, you're gonna see more single day attendees. Which with a premier con, in my opinion, you're gonna see a lot more 3-day weekend badge in comparison to single day badges. Um, so if that's a factor to you, let it be known. See, admissions was like $45 to $65, and I'm not sure how much is adjusted for single day versus the weekend. So it's not as expensive as some of the other conventions that you would see. Oh, I should also mention this is May 29th to 31st. And it does seem like they have a general pattern of trying to have the convention around the time that the schools let out. And so there's graduations and that kind of stuff. As far as like kids and families, students, you would see a pretty good amount of them. My best guess would be probably about like 30% would be, the families and kids category. The about 50% would be standard adults. So that would be 20 to, I want to say 40, and then say 20% being older than that. The X actually is something surprising to me. There were actually a pretty decent number of people who were considerably older, like 50s, 60s, 70s. But that may be partially reflected in the voice actors that was brought in, because we had folks from Firefly, Sonic, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Pinky and the Brain. A lot of like nostalgia cartoons type of audience, the voice actors and such. Would I say there's a lot of Genshin? Not really. Would I say general anime still? A decent amount. VTubers? Not really. It's like probably a 1% crowd. as far as that's concerned. But yeah, mostly like comic, superheroes, popular culture, um, typical shonen show. Um, it would be, um, oh, Star Wars. Sci-fi channel. Um, it would be more like authors, comic creators, and such. The spending habits. Let's make this a different page. I didn't notice that this may also just be a product of the economy and such, but I didn't notice that there weren't a whole lot of going on for the show itself, so people were being a little bit tight with their wallets. There were prints, keychains, pins, stickers, that kind of stuff. A lot of small items in general. Take care of his spot here. Prints, keychains, that kind of stuff. The prints, I did notice that overall sizes have gone down. So it's more 5x7, 8x10, rather than the 11x17. And that does seem to be a general trend with the overall purchasing habits that other conventions bloggers will talk about. Let's see. As far as like percentages, I would say it's probably the 80% card and then 20% cash. And I was able to make back my table and pay for next year's table with a little bit left over. This is one of those years where I think I finally started to dial in what I want to do as far as my products and my overall like subject matters. And so it'll be easier in the future. I know some of my friends did well, and I know other folks have not done well. So personally, I would say if you if you're local, you'll be okay. If you are flying in, I would highly advise against it unless well, let's back up here. Drive plus hotel. I would say if you're driving but you get the hotel for this particular convention, I would probably wait until you're able to reasonably clear about 1500 at other conventions. And then if you're flying in, that goes up to like 2200. Those are just like thresholds, I would say, before considering coming here for supplemental income. It makes sense if you're like trying to broaden your base a little bit, but here's the thing. I have a clicker in my head, and now I have a mechanical one for future conventions. These guys, like the ones they use for doing track. And while this is going off in my head, I was predicting about I was mentally calculating approximately 1500 to 2000 attendees for the entire weekend. And I made 30 to 50 transactions. A day. So just some extra reference numbers to help you out with figuring out if this is the right place for you to be. The overall, like, the style saturation, I would say is ranges from 5 to probably 35% per day. And so that means the area in front of your table, you can expect it to be roughly occupied 5 to 35% of the total space around it. And so foot traffic isn't too high, meaning if you have kind of a low booth, you don't have to build like super high in order to cover all of the audiences that would be jammed like sardines in the aisles. Because they'll be able to see most of your stuff pretty okay. Layout wise, it was like a 2-hall setup. then clear this section out here a little bit. Then clear this section. Just getting a general layout here. I can't quite recall how many vendors we had specifically, but I want to say somewhere in the neighborhood of 70 to 100 vendors. And the overall traffic flow was like this. They would come down to the celebrities, and then they would kind of disperse or say other rows. There were a pretty good space, mostly for like cosplay, photography, and that kind of stuff over here. And I actually had a table like right here on the edge. So there were people coming and going pretty freely. I never felt particularly pressured as far as people being packed together, and they seemed to manage the lines pretty well with the celebrities. I mean, there were like notable exceptions, like a prior year. There was like Brendan Fraser from The Mummy, pretty packed. And the exhibitors were up here. And then Artist Alley. We had stuff like Fudge, Mystery, boxes, trading cards, prop weapon, card games. So that I make a distinction because there's the trading card sellers, like the ones doing Pokemon and all of that stuff, and then there's card games where they are the IP holders of the game, and so they're just selling their own game. A fair amount of like 3D print, dice, that kind of stuff in the exhibitors section. Not too terrible in my opinion as far as the quantity of those. I would say that there are other conventions where it is more of a problem. But I won't go into details on that unless the time is appropriate, of course. Artist Alley was pretty diverse, which is nice. I would say probably no more than 5 or 6 people in a pretty tight category were there. So let's see. Like there were pixel art people, there were anime keychains, there were like travel posters, there were like metal prints. You know, it's a pretty diverse group in the Artist Alley, which I appreciate. What else? Applications. Let me check real quick here. I can find our information about it. Looks like they opened about January of this year. Yeah. So January, and then the actual convention itself being May, June. What else would be good to mention? Talked about prices, talked about travel. I think that's pretty much it as far as that's concerned. So let's get to some of the fun part of the things that I did remember to do. So this here was my booth for this year, and it was a pretty big change as far as the overall layout is concerned. It is now my new formal design that I'm sending in with my applications and such. It does look a little bit janky in a way because of the beans. I got these photo stand kits, and unfortunately Amazon actually split up the shipment of the bowls, and so I got half of it on time, and the other half basically I couldn't actually use it until Sunday. But I was trying to get the poles put in place, and it was just constantly untwisting itself because it wasn't fully seated, and that's why it dragged down like this. But I did try to go as much self-serve as I possibly could. So we had the keychains. I'm gonna change the colors here. The keychains here, self-serve. The buttons and small prints and pins. Sculpture. This was just decoration. Although I would say it was kind of funny, entertaining, all of the comments about, oh, is this a candle? Is in random kids running up and poking the ever loving out of the little food here. Yeah, I'm terribly sorry that it's already pixelated at this size, but they were just decorations that I bought off of Amazon. It's like wax or plastic, and then the squishy one were like memory foam or something like that. But they did look really good, which is excellent. I have my stickers set up here. I kind of couldn't see too well down here, so if there were some shrink, I probably wouldn't have seen it. But there were some people who did report some theft from in front and from behind the table, because they don't exactly kick everybody out of a convention hall immediately when the con closes. So there is a chance that there may still be attendees kind of lingering around if you take off immediately. This right here is honestly the best thing I did. I shared this in a prior stream, but these are cupcake risers that I have bought, and they pack really nice. It is just like a square tube like this, and basically it just came with a simple bubble wrap bag, but nothing else other than the actual product itself. So it was incredibly space efficient for the packaging. So I got 2 of them, and then I got little business card holders, which were like this. And they actually ended up working out perfectly, because this right here is 16.7 inches, and each of these business card holders were about 4 inches. But you actually need a little bit of extra space on the side, because the linking on the badge ribbons will actually go out of that a little bit, and so it's not perfectly 4 inches per ribbon. It's actually a little bit more, which is again why these sticker risers actually don't work, because these are 12.2 inches, and so you end up being able to put 2 ribbons, and then the final one is like just annoyingly short of being able to fit in. So you either bend your ribbons so they all go together and then they eventually settle and overlap, or you just put 2 ribbons and that's it, or you turn them on their side, which makes it super annoying to actually read. So please don't do that. But this right here, it was perfect. People understood the idea. They were able to reach it, be able to read stuff. the issue, I would say, with the um, particular business card holders I had were that it was black metal, and so you can't really see anything if you wrote bottom text on any of them. People would have to hold the ribbon up a little bit to read it. So if you're wanting to replicate this, just keep in mind it may block part of your design doing so. I did have my display tablet up here, but my digital photo frame is the right term, and it was running just fine all weekend. I had a pretty good battery to run it for each day. Took it home to recharge, and it was just looping through several like static frames that I had, plus time lapses. Excuse me. And some people did stop and kind of watch. Some did ask questions about streaming on Twitch and that kind of stuff. So it was a good way to introduce some motion to the overall booth. And I don't know if I mentioned this in a prior stream, but I did end up getting command hooks, and it was like, there's a base down here, and kind of a rubber piece that went around like this. And there was burden down here, and this would go up in here, and so the strip went on the back of a frame, and then this rubber part went around the railing, so it fit perfectly. These lamps here, I just got relatively cheap music reading lights, and they basically ran continuously on one charge for the entire weekend, so it was nice, versus something that you have to have a separate battery running for, bringing it back and forth. I did participate in 2 stamp rallies, and I may have mentioned them already, but let's see. The basic idea for these stamp rallies is that it's opposed to a minimum purchase threshold at each booth. All you had to do was find the hidden object at each of our booth to get your stamp in the ribbon. And then in the case of a Sonic rally, you also got a special price package of stickers if you were the first 50 to finish the cart. And we basically had 100% completion. Everybody participated, and we ran out of prizes pretty quick for the Sonic rally. We burned through like 200, almost 200 ribbons for the Alien rally. And I had, actually, you know what? I do have the catalog. If I can, here it is. So yeah, we had the ribbon rally, and a lot of it was just like space western, space firefly. Mine was the first year sudden yet inevitable betrayal ribbon. And then we had the Sonic Rally, and here was the sticker package that you could get. And I actually took 2 spots because we were aiming to have 7, but we only ended up with 6. So I just took another spot, and I was also at the redemption booth, so it was nice to get people coming back. But yeah, it was good. The one thing that I would probably note is if you do a map, you will want to have some kind of landmark, or make sure that every booth in there has their number prominently displayed, because people were having the issue with the map and like orienting themselves properly to find the rest of the booth. And so I was writing in, okay, here's the BAs on this side, and that's how the map is oriented. So you bound me, here's the other folks down this way to get to the ribbons. And as I mentioned, with I probably mentioned in prior streams, this was a really good strategy for me at the very least. I'm not certain how well it went for other people, because I haven't gotten those stories yet at the time of this stream. But the big thing was that it forced people to slow down and actually look at your stuff. Um, there's a funny story about that. There was this one lady who came up to the booth, and she was participating in the rallies, and she's like, okay, I gotta look for these. I cannot let myself get distracted. And I'm like, well, I want to distract you. I want to have you taking a look at all this stuff, and maybe you'll find something you like in the process. Just kind of being that shameless merchant, but having a little bit of levity, um, but yeah, she did end up buying later, which is nice. Um, but I feel like it's more of a strong incentive to at least give the booth the fair chance, as opposed to um, just scanning for what you want and then dipping. Like, that can always be an issue, and when you have a purchase threshold, it can lead to people abandoning the rally because, well, they don't have the kind of budget to participate, or certain booths in there just have basically nothing they actually want in there. So this is not to say that you shouldn't do it. It's just that, well, it may make more sense if you have a super cool price and you can confirm that everybody at your booth, everybody in your rally will have at least a few things related to the theme in question for purchase. And so that way real fans of this particular show, genre, etc., would be able to find things that they would like at each of the booth. Badge ribbons. Oh boy. The badge ribbons were by far the best seller of the entire weekend for me. If I had to guess, just not looking at my notebook, I would say probably a good 70% of my sales were involving badge ribbons. So it may just be because it's low cost. It may also be I'm actually doing something right with these ribbons. You know? And Des Moines Con, I would say, is not a terribly badge ribbon show just yet. We were talking about wanting to try to push it a little bit more, and push it I did. I didn't get to explain the whole concept of badge ribbons to a couple of people throughout the weekend, and so that was nice. It kind of exposed them to the fun idea of these. I will say that for the future, I may actually drop some of these breakfast items because they just didn't really do that well in comparison. We did have some sales of the miscellaneous, most notably, as he would predict, the Perry the Platypus badge ribbon. That was popular. People did like the butter ribbon in particular. It was really good. Some people did buy things related to the Build-A-Burger set. Also was also popular. The bars, like my stickers and keychains, I did not sell a ton of keychains. I sold a decent amount of stickers. Prints, I did not sell a lot of, but it was enough to tie me over as far as my expenses were concerned. Popular ones, I would say, was the cats. They did well. Otter Pops. I think Christ on Isopod was kind of a surprise, actually. I ended up selling a few of those, and one of them was the pin format, and the pretzel puffer fish. The blobfish pudding, of course, got a lot of laughs out of people. I sold, I think, one of the button pins, the new ones that I tried out, which is unfortunate to a degree, but you know, maybe it's just not the audience for those kind of pins specifically. I'll just have to try them at a couple of other shows to see if that makes sense there versus not. I believe I sold one or two of this Sonic print that I did, which is reassuring. I want to do more prints in that vein. People really like the Canto Kitchen cookbook idea I was proposing, so I'm gonna keep working on that. That will probably be the subject of a couple of future streams. Pokemon, like a couple of keychains, evolutions for sure. And there was this lady who was like, if you do this in watercolor and bring it to Nebraska, I'll buy it from you. So that's part of the reason why I'm trying to learn how to properly do watercolors. But yeah, that was nice to hear. People like the idea, so I'll keep rolling with them. See what else. So those were the details here. What else can I pull up? Okay, food. I have pizza, a buffalo chicken drizzle. I had a mac and cheese pizza with bacon. It was pretty good. Crust might have been a little bit much, but again, that was me eating two pretty big slices of pizza. This is a pretty standard paper plate for reference. We also did go to a cheese bar nearby. So we got this board, really tasty. I could not finish it. It simply was too much for me alone. So I split it with the friend, and she ended up taking home most of the leftovers. We also split, but we also had a little bit of the pasta to go with it. Really tasty. There were some cool cosplays. Like there was this group of Expedition 33. Super cool. Love it. There's a pumpkin dress. Super cute. Back to the cheese bar. I have been having non-alcoholic drinks. So this was a wagon rider. It was really tasty. I'll have to remind myself what the ingredients were specifically, but it was kind of like a gin and tonic with fruit. I did see some cool merch. Unfortunately, the camera must have been still moving a little bit when I snapped this, but it was a bag that had unlucky charms, so kind of gave me ideas for like eater bags and that kind of stuff. Really good Bremen and Himmel. Here's a better photo of the badge ribbon setup. So I just co-located all of the burger stuff here, and then all of the breakfast stuff over here. Had some of the miscellaneous stuff around the edges. See what else. I did also put this together during the weekend, just to help people kind of grasp the idea of what you could do with the badge ribbons. So a general like catalog of what I had. You can see how lovely the yellow of that butter came out. There's a stack of blueberry pancakes. There's a KFC double down over here. I was just yammering this entire weekend about, oh, you can do this, you can do that, you can do that. I got a couple of ideas for like toast, peanut butter, jelly, pickles, a couple of other things, but that may serve as replacement parts for future shows to, give more customization options for the sandwiches, because people seem to love the overall idea of a sandwich. And a couple of my friends keep saying, people keep talking about you we gotta go back to the badge ribbon booth and all of that. And I did have people coming back several times just looking at the ribbons and such. So clearly it's working. I'm loving it. But yeah, that was my Des Moines Con experience. And I think I'll wrap it up here. I'm gonna have this spot up on Friday as usual. And I hope this was beneficial to everybody who's watching this, whether it's in this stream or in the pod. It ran a little bit longer than I would expect it to, but it's good to get in the habit of doing these because, well, I don't think there's too many people with the Des Moines Con vlog out there right now. So adding another convention vlog to the pile. But yeah, thank you all for coming and have a good night. We'll see you next time.